how do legal presumptions work in New Jersey workers' compensation? So this is all, sounds really complicated. It sounds really confusing. It's not. So all of you probably watched football. Some of you probably love football. So let's talk football. When you have a case involving a presumption, think of a football field. In a normal case, a normal game, the employee has to carry the ball, make first downs, and move the ball and score points. That's a normal football game, okay? But that's not a workers' comp game. In workers' compensation, the employee has to move the ball to the 50-yard line, get just slightly over the 50-yard line, and that's it. If the game ends and they're over the 50-yard line, then the judge is going to say, you, employee, have proven your case by a preponderance of the evidence. Fancy word for you got over the 50-yard line, okay? That's all you have to prove. You do not have to get a touchdown. You do not have to get a field goal. You just move the ball over the 50-yard line. If you do, you win. Now, as we talked about with presumptions, as Zach mentioned at the beginning, the burden shifts to the employer. The game starts. Who's got the ball? The employer has the ball. The employee doesn't have to carry the ball, okay? The employee doesn't have to do anything at this point. They just have to see if the employer can, quote, rebut the claim. The employer has to move the ball, and at the end of the game, has to move it past the 50-yard line. If the judge feels that the evidence is slightly more likely that it's not work-related, then the employer wins. So what are we trying to prove on the employer side? Well, one thing I'm trying to prove is that there was no exposure at work. And sometimes I can do that, okay? Because a lot of my clients have detailed information that no one else had COVID. I have a case involving a doctor's office, and the doctor has records of everyone he saw in May, and everyone was negative. He's actually checked. There weren't a lot, first of all, there weren't a lot of people coming to his office in May, because you may recall people stopped going to see doctors. And this employee says, I got it from working at that doctor's office. Well, the problem that she has is we've got pretty good records. We've contacted every single solitary employee in that office, and no one was COVID positive. So we're going to win that case. Now, that's exposure. But we may also persuade the judge that there might have been some exposure at work, who knows, but they don't have they can't identify a specific person. And we know that someone in their family in the home had COVID first. We can move the ball that way too. So the whole idea is, under the essential employees, it doesn't mean that we lose. It makes it easier for the employee because they don't have to carry the ball, but we can still win the case. Okay, let's go to the next